Welcome to another preview show here on the Cycling Day Extra channel if you're listening on the podcast available on Spotify. And today we are talking about one of the big ones, if not the biggest, Ronde van Vlaanderen. And here to discuss all things Tour of Flanders is, of course, Patrick Blake of How Cycling and 1/3 of the Echelon Cycling podcast. And I mean, Patrick, Ronde van Vlaanderen, where do you rate this as a race and what editions kind of stick out in the last few years for you?
I mean, this has got to be one of the best bike races going in the whole calendar. It's one of a few one-day races which I think kind of people who would only consider themselves to be kind of like Tour de France cycling fans might also tune in for. It's a serious race. And in terms of editions that stand out, I mean, I've got to say that Asgreen one was pretty cool. Nobody expected, I don't think anybody to think like that Asgreen was going to beat Van der Poel in that sprint. That was absolutely crazy to think about that. And I mean, of course, Poggi last year really rocking up and beating Van der Poel basically on the Van der Poel race. Like, Van der Poel has an insane record in this event. So that was also quite an exceptional feat by Poggi to turn up and beat the King of Flanders, basically, in his own backyard. Well, even though he is Dutch, but you get what I mean. So yeah, it's a really cool race, and I think we're also in for a good edition this time around as well.
Yeah, I mean, Pedersen winning, I think, was like a huge moment as well. Philippe Gilbert winning, Boonen, Cancellara, all these kind of great clashes of titans. And if it wasn't for Laporte, who was annoying last year at the Euros, we would have had the world champion versus the European champion potentially on one of these climbs. But that dream's gone. But I mean, with that out of the way, dreams aside, Patrick, what does this year's route look like for the riders?
So the 108th edition takes us from Antwerp to Oudenaarde. It is 271 kilometres, which is an awfully long day in the saddle. And of course, we take in 135 kilometres, about halfway through the race. We take in our first ascent to the Aert on sort of the gateway to all the cobble climbs that are yet to come. And then, of course, it's followed up by, the Molenberg, the Morgenstraat, the Valkenberg, Aardequermont-Paterberg combination for the first time. Then we've got the Koppenberg, Tyenberg, the Kreuzberg, and then we've got the Aardequermont-Paterberg combination for a second time. And then we've got about 15 kilometres of flat to the finish line, where we may have a solo victor at that point, just somebody rolling in on a bit of a procession. Or we could have a scenario that we've had in the past where it's two people going to the line, and therefore you just don't know how it's going to end up, and it could end up in a tete-a-tete or in a sprint. So I kind of hope it's a head-to-head sprint and it's not just somebody riding off for the last 15 kilometres. It does make it more interesting to watch because you don't know who the victor's going to be. And yeah, it's going to be a really hard one. 271 kilometres is not to be sniffed at when you consider that, San Remo is something like 20 kilometres more than this, but includes far less climbing and far less kind of like positional battling. That's just why Flanders is so difficult. It's because you need to fight for every entrance into every one of these sectors.
Yeah, but Patrick, we might as well go into the favourites. And as you said, where best to start with? Then the king of Flanders, Mathieu Van der Poel. Yes, he was somewhat dethroned last year a bit, but I mean, he just had a sabbatical. World champion coming into this race. I mean, bidding to be the first world champion to win since Pedersen, if my memory serves me right. And obviously, I was salivating all over the place on the prospect of him winning Milan-San Remo as world champion, as there were so many connotations on that, but that didn't happen. So the dream's over on that part. But nevertheless, this would be his third victory. He would get one step closer to the all-time record as well if he wins. Reminder of his record, 2019, fourth place, where he had that crash and then still recovered, which was an Herculean performance to say the least. Then we had 2020, Wout van Aert and him duking it out after Alaphilippe had his whoopsie with the motorbike, which what a great addition that was as well. We didn't even speak of that. 2021, him and Pog had a bit of a dance, and then at the end, wait, am I missing out one? No, 2021, Asgreen. What am I saying? The Dane forgetting the Danish victory. Yeah, Asgreen somehow beating him in a sprint. I was sure that Asgreen had lost that, but whatever. Whatever. Brilliant. Then we had 2022 where Tadej Pogačar and him had a bit of a dance, and then in that finale, Tadej Pogačar boxed in, but Mathieu Van der Poel did the business and won. And then last year, as you mentioned, Pogačar rode off into the sunset. And I mean, Patrick, he hasn't had the most race days this year, 3 in fact. But obviously, he's had a packed cyclocross season as well, winning the World Championships in Tabor. But yeah, how do you see Mathieu van der Poel's chances? And also, who's on his team?
See his chances being very good. Like, there's a good probability that you're going to be seeing the world champion winning this race. But he's supported by Jasper Philipsen, Maurice Ballestedt, Caden Groves, bit of an odd one in my eyes, but I kind of like it. Søren Kragh Andersen, Sylvain Dillier, and Gianni Vermeersch. I think it's a decent squad. I'm interested to see how Philipsen is used in this, whether he's just going to try and make a group 2 and sprint for minor placings, whether he's kind of capable of doing that. I'm not sure. He's obviously in flying form this year. But yeah, Van der Poel's really the big name that everybody's needing to beat, because although Pedersen did beat him at Ghent-Wevelgem and looked to have him on the ropes on the Kemmelberg, this is a different style of race altogether. And I think that Van der Poel always just goes well in this race. It seems like, although he was struggling at Ghent-Wevelgem, maybe in places, it's possible that that's because, you know, he was just going so hard in E3 and maybe he wasn't fully recovered. But I expect to see an absolutely flying Van der Poel, especially since he's not doing Dwaal's Dal, so he gets a little bit more recovery time as opposed to some of his main competitors.
Yeah, I agree. E3 and Ghent-Wevelgem are, of course, very close. Obviously, some of his other rivals did both. We shan't name his name, Mads Pedersen. Yeah, I mean, he's had a phenomenal start to the year, to say the least, whatever metric you want to use. And, I mean, how do you see him winning this? Is it one of those where he rides off into the sunset, or is he going to come to the finish with someone, hopefully not a Danish guy, because then he loses the sprint?
Probably best if he tries to go solo, I think. Although, thinking about it, he's never done that. He's never won Flanders solo. It's always his 2 victories were against, well, when Pog was swapped by Madouas and Van Baal, and also when he beat Wout van Aert. So Van der Poel's never gone solo, but if he channels what he did in E3, then it's very possible that he could go solo. I think that's his best chance of victory, obviously, because then he's not up against anyone. There's no other kind of like people to ruin his day. But I mean, speaking of people who might ruin his day, Mads Pedersen. I mean, I'm saying his name before Mathieu van der Poel's other rival, but Pedersen is the one who's beaten Van der Poel on Sunday in Ghent-Wevelgem. And
in a sprint? Sprint. Oh, okay. Wout did it last year in E3, so can't forget about that.
But Lidl Trek with an incredibly strong team, and just also in a fantastic form, it seems, with Pedersen, Tim de Klerk, Alex Kirsch, Jonathan Milan, Tom Schoen, Jasper Stuyven, and Edward Turns. I mean, Stuyven's been looking great. He would have been, I think, in that front group with Pedersen and Van der Poel, but he had a puncture in Ghent-Wevelgem, so I think that Stuyven's Ghent-Wevelgem performance isn't representative of how good he is at the moment. Schoens as well is really good over these long, hard days. Pedersen, obviously in fantastic form. Milan as like a sprinting option. This is a insanely good classics team.
Yeah, no, Lidl Trek, I think they've just matured ever so slightly over the years. Like almost the same personnel. Yes, Milan in a few other changes, but the stem of Schoens, Stuyven, and Mads Pedersen have really just forged this incredible strength they have, and the input of Lidl as well as a sponsor has really just upped everything. And I think they're definitely going to be one of the teams to look at, and they're really not afraid to like take control of a race as well. And when most people are looking towards Alpecin and Visma Lease bike, they've definitely just thrusted themselves in between, if not further than one of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that Pedersen's the main man, but I think they've got some fantastic secondary options in Stuyven and Schoens who could get up the road and really get into a move. Kind of like what happened last year, you could say, and kind of really try and disrupt things. And it just means that Pedersen can sit in, and because he's the main man that they're going to try and win this with. But it wouldn't surprise me if one of their domestiques managed to also get a really good result for themselves.
Stuyven second in E3, Mess Pedersen getting Wilgum, obviously, and then scoring second in Strada. I mean, and then we're not even counting the other top 10s they had in E3 as well, Alex Kirsch and Scoin. So just everyone's firing right now. I think if it's going to be a year, this is the year that they could reclaim another monument. But I mean, Mess Pedersen, his big goal is to get that monument. It's kind of, we were talking about it on the echelon, that this is the big thing that he's missing to really get himself into that upper tier Galactico tier that we always refer to. And he's fighting against a Danish icon as well, Poel Regain, who has won Tour of Flanders as well. So he wants to be the number one Danish one-day rider. But I mean, Patrick, how does he win this? He's been second in 2018. He was in the breakaway there, and then Terpstra caught him back. And then last year he was on the podium after being out there again trying it, but that didn't quite work. And then he won the sprint against Wout van Aert in the best for the rest. So how does Mess Pedersen actually win this? Because getting Wevelgem, like you said in the recap, is not as hard as this.
I do think that this is a better Pedersen than last year, I'd say. It just looks like he's in better form. So I'd say that he could try and rely on that to follow Van der Poel, or even try take it to Van der Poel on the climbs and just hope that, you know, what was happening in Gent-Wevelgem just kind of repeats itself and he tries to basically beat him in a sprint. That would be, you know, quite realistic to expect that. Try and use their numbers, unlike what Visma-Leasebike have been doing. You know, get their guys like Schoins and Stuyven up the road, so it means that you have to, you know, it forces the other teams to use up their guys first. So, you know, if Pedersen does have a problem, somebody can drop back and drag him up again, or if he makes a move, then they can kind of relay together once he bridges up to them. So I think they've got to use their strength in numbers and really hope that Pedersen's on a magic day very similar to Ghent. And I think they've honestly got a decent shot of taking this in multitude of scenarios. Just going solo, winning it in a sprint amongst two people, winning it in a sprint amongst 5 to 6 people. It's, you know, they've got a lot of good possibilities.
Well, we might as well move the conversation on. UAE Team Emirates, sorry, you're not going to be in the favourite section. But rather, Visma-Leasebike, the yellow elephant in the room, a.k.a. Jumbo-Visma. Wout van Aert obviously hasn't won Ronde van Vlaanderen, come so close, been on the podium. Won Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne this year. Podium on Omloop, very strong in that opening weekend, but obviously there was no Mathieu van der Poel there. How do you see Visma-Leasebike's chances? And again, a formidably strong team by them.
They've been hit by the news like yesterday that Laporte isn't taking part, which is a bit of a blow because he
gave the European jersey to Wout, and then we're all happy. Just let him borrow it for one race.
Just let him borrow it. Imagine if that was a rule. That'd be funny. But yeah, Wout supported by, at the moment, Affini, Benoot, Jorgensen, Tratnik and Van Baal. The speculation being that one of the Van Dijk twins will step in for this last spot, which would be, you know, a pretty decent move. Yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, they started off so strong at the beginning of the Classics opening weekend, but now for some reason I really feel like even like Lidl Trek are at a higher level than Visma-Leasebike. And I'm not sure if that's just kind of a recency bias, but yeah, Wout obviously had that tumble at E3. We don't know where he would have come, you know, if that didn't happen. He is going to do in Dwars which, you know, disclaimer, we're recording this before that, so we don't know what the result of that's going to be. Yeah, Jorgensen was good in this race last year, and of course he's won Paris-Nice, so he's clearly in good form. Tratnik, winner of Omloop, whether, you know, he was used really early in E3 just to bring back the move of Van der Poel, I think, or something like that. So, and then Van Baal as well, who's finished on the podium of this race. So it's a team which on paper is really strong, but for some reason just hasn't quite been working so far this year, and I can't put my finger on it.
Never really discount Visma-Leasebike, whatever, because, yeah, despite it not really clicking, I mean, when it does click, it's phenomenal. But I mean, Visma-Leasebike, talking to you, yeah, hello. If you do want some advice on that last position, I did a video over on the Cycling Day Gaming channel where I included Jonas Vingegaard in your team, and it did quite well. So if you want to check that out, click above. But yeah, how does Wout win this, Patrick? That's the golden question for Wout. He desperately wants this. I mean, however much we sometimes are a bit too critical of him. He's an incredible rider. Put him in any generation and this guy will do well. Almost any race he's competitive in. It's just that little bit extra that he's been outdone. I mean, imagine his Palmares if Mathieu van der Poel didn't exist.
Imagine he would have such a good Palmares.
10-time cyclocross champion.
Yeah.
7 monuments.
Yeah. Green jersey, Tour of France stages across the board. And that'd be fantastic. I don't know how Wout wins this. Will Van der Poel and Pedersen be looking at each other as like the big favourites? Will Wout be given a bit of leeway? I don't think so. It's just that when it comes to the cobble climbs, he just gets that kind of Wout van Aert like bobbing head, and then you just know that he's just ready to pop. And I just think that when it comes to the Adequate, like especially the Paterberg, he just, for some reason, that's just like where he struggles a lot. I can only just hope that he's just got better legs. Unfortunately, he's too big of a name for them to give him leeway, but he just always seems to lack that little edge where he seems to always get dropped on the cobble climb. So he's just in this really awkward spot where I would like to see Wout win. But I just think it's going to be really hard. Whether, say, Van der Poel goes solo, but Pedersen and Wout are together in a group 2 and they bring him back on that last 15k and it's a sprint and maybe Wout's been a bit clever and let Pedersen do more of a work. Maybe Wout could win in a sprint. That's like one very niche scenario where I could see Wout doing well, but I just think it's going to be quite hard for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Don't hold your breath, Wout. I mean, do your best, Wout. We like you a lot. Imagine a world without Wout as well. That would be sad.
That would suck.
But nevertheless, we might as well move into more of an outsiders category. And I feel like UAE Team Emirates, we should definitely mention them because they are the defending champions, despite not having Tadej Pogačar here. Yeah, Patrick, who do you think is kind of the leader out of this team? In the top 5 favorites video, I was saying Tim Wellens, but then I discovered later, well, I knew it in the video, he's not finished better than 25th, but he has had a surprisingly good spring classic or spring campaign already, finishing 4th in E3 and obviously being up there in Star Bianchi, finishing in 13th again, 3rd time in his career, quite weird. But he was on domestique due to them doing a lot of marking as well. He was on the podium in, was it Kern? Yeah. How are UAE going to play this year? And who do you think is their best card as well?
Yeah, I think Wellens, maybe Pollitt as well could be a
really true, yeah,
choice for them. Pollitt's gone well over these long races before. Like you say, Wellens just, for some reason, hasn't had a good history of his races. I think Wellens has looked better this year than he has done in previous years where he's been at like Lotto Soudal and stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is just it's a blip. And this year he does really well. I'd like to see Morgado try and get into a breakaway or into like an early move to get up the road a little bit and anticipate. And also maybe Mikkel Bjerg could be a decent one. I think he finished maybe, I want to say it was like top 15 or something last year, something around that. So him and Morgado, I think, should be trying to infiltrate some early moves and try and sneak away in that sense. Because I think if the big guys start attacking, they're not going to be able to hang on. So you may as well try and anticipate a little bit. So I think we've got quite a few cards to play here, but yeah, probably Wellens and Pollitt will be their main guys who they're looking towards to try and get their best results.
Well, Ineos Grenadiers, we're definitely going to mention them at one point, but not right now. Narvaez crashing, my heart broke. Such a big fan of Narvaez, Ecuadorian national champion. I mean, him being good at cobbles, it's just strange. It's like a Danish guy winning mountain climbs. It's a bit of the same notion here. But yeah, in terms of a rider we should mention, who I completely slept on, Stefan Kuhn. We were discussing this, that he actually, in the last 2 years, has quite an impressive record. 5th in 2022 and 6th in 2023. Obviously, he went on to do 3rd in 2022 in Paris-Roubaix and then 5th in Paris-Roubaix the year after. So I don't know what he's doing, but it's working.
I'd probably say that this year maybe his results aren't quite as good, but he has had some he's had some sad personal news and stuff, so I'm not sure how that's been affecting him. But maybe this year could be the year for Kuhn. He's always there, pretty much. I mean, there's also Madouas here, who of course also finished on the podium back in 2022, but he hasn't been as present in the Cobble Classics either. So I'd say that Kung's probably their main man. But, you know, we've got Askey and Watson, the two Brits, who could be a bit of a surprise as well. So I think it's a decent squad for Groupama, but yeah, Kung's probably the main guy to try and get a result for them.
I mean, we might as well move swiftly on as well. In terms of EF Education Easy Post, I didn't even mention this in the top 5. Alberto Bettiol, 2019 champion of this race. Very strong team around them. Nilsson Paulus, also top 10 finisher last year. Velgren, before his injuries, he was a phenomenal rider in the one-day settings, former Omloop and Amstel Gold winner. But in terms of EF Education Easy Post, quite interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting team. Bettiol's an interesting one because, like you say, he didn't finish E3 from what I remember. I can't remember if that was a crash or what it was that made him pull out of that. But so we don't really have a big gauge other than how he does at the Wilds Door, but he was looking very good at San Remo. He won Milano Torino in kind of that same week as well. So he's obviously in fantastic form. So I think that Bettiol's definitely one to be looking out for. I think that he is trying to repeat that 2019 feat that he managed to do. And I think that he's got a decent shot of doing it. I think the fact that he DNF'd E3 gives him this sort of stealth aspect where people aren't quite sure. And maybe because he's not, you know, the biggest name, maybe people will be more willing to give him a bit of leeway if he attacks a bit earlier. So I think that Bettiol's got a decent shot as an outsider to try and pull off, you know, a top 5 or even better.
I mean, if we're just rolling through there's a lot of outsiders. I mean, Bahrain victorious, Matej Mohoric, not a great record at this race. For some reason, I thought he had a blistering record. Well, 3 top 10s, I was assuming, but hasn't finished that inside the top 20 yet. Fred Wright, very strong in this race. He's been in the top 10 last year. One of your personal favorites as well, from Movistar, Oya Loscano. Didn't finish last year, but they had Matteo Jorgensen in the team. He was 9th place, so potentially he can be given an opportunity. Jaco Eula as well, with Michael Matthews, 2nd place, as we know, in Milan-San Remo. Alexander Kristoff as well, former champion. And Kasper Asgreen, former champion as well. He seems to be going a bit stronger than he was in the last few years. But yeah, Patrick, out of them or anyone else, who's kind of riders that you're looking at?
Trenton as well, maybe.
Oh, true. He was showing himself a bit.
He could be an interesting one.
I think he was top 10 last year, in fact.
Yeah, I think he was, actually. Binny?
Yeah, I mean, Binny crashed last year, which was on his birthday. Like, You can almost not have a worse birthday. He's like, starts, monument start, first Tour of Flanders, riding for a Belgian team. Here we go, defending Wevelgem. Well, kind of was. And then, crash. But I mean, that was the same for Wellens. We didn't mention that. Wellens got taken out by that viral Philip Majcik crash.
Yeah. And I'd say one other name, maybe Alaphilippe. Maybe he could put those 2020 demons behind him. I mean, he was decent at San Remo, but he didn't get a particularly great result at E3. I think that Soudal Quickstep could certainly. He's a big stage performer as Alaphilippe. You know, he kind of comes out of nowhere and does really well at your World Championships and your Lièges and stuff like that. So, big stage Alaphilippe could maybe pull something out of the bag.
That 2020 breakaway with Wout van Aert, Mathieu van der Poel and Alaphilippe in the rainbow jersey. Oh my goodness, that's like ecstasy levels for cycling fans. If we had something like that again. I mean, it doesn't work now because Mathieu has the jersey. He stole the jersey. Yeah, I mean, what do you think of Florent Sénéchal or Jordi Meus, who was 3rd in that sprint? I know Gem, like you said, isn't as hard, but what is the point of Bora at this race if really? Is it Danny Van Poppel, your favourite? I mean, he's been looking very strong. What is the point of Bora?
Oh, I think that...
Whoa!
There's a few...
Did they not send the PR check to you this week?
No. I'm nowhere near that. I just think that there are a few teams here who are probably hoping that they can, you know, usually you see if somebody goes solo, maybe there's a there's like a group behind of 10 people who sprint it out for some of the minor places, and maybe they're hoping that they could get Mayus into that to try and sprint to a decent enough position. 4 is a bit of a weird one. They don't have the strongest classics team. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried to get into the break once more with some of their riders to try and get ahead of the action before it kicks off.
And to any Scandinavians, viewers or listeners, myself included in this, obviously, we do have 2 Swedish riders. So that thing that I've been craving to have this Scandinavian battle, we have plenty of Norwegians, unfortunately. No, I love you guys, don't worry. But plenty of Danes as well. And then we have 2 Swedes in form of Tobias Ludvigsson, who we all kind of know who he is, and Jakob Eriksson, riding for Tour Pro Cycling, and the prior riding for Q36.5. So potentially Sweden can get going in this. But I don't know where I was going with that. But Denmark, plenty of Danes. That's all us Danes need to worry about. And yeah, there's some Yorkshiremen, I guess, as well. But Ineos Grenadiers, we might as well finish on them. They haven't got Pidcock here, as you said in our other preview. I think, was it even our predictions video, that he's focusing more on the Ardennes, which is great because he was absolutely good last year. He got podiums there. But how do you see this team? Question mark over Narvaez, obviously, after that crash, which I'm still mourning, as I said. But a very Yorkshire-filled team here. Yeah, it's almost Yorkshire.
You include Sheffield just because he's got the name of...
Yeah, there you go. There we go.
It's the same thing.
Just call them Ineos Yorkshire from now on.
Literally, you may as well do. They're working for Turner and Gent Belbegem, so obviously, like you say, Navarro is crossing out about. We don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully he's fine, because he would be a fantastic contender to be, I'd say, honestly, cracking a top 5 in this race. If that's not the case, yeah, Turner's probably going to be their man to try and realistically get a top 10 would be a decent ambition. But yeah, then we've got Ben Swift, Connor Swift, Luke Rowe, Sheffield. We've got another man who's yet to come in. Cameron Verth is kind of floating around as maybe a possibility. I
didn't know he was still riding, to be honest.
I know. Well, he's on the star list for Tour of Flanders, so I'm going to presume that they might be bringing him to Flanders as well.
The Ironman cross sport rider. Amazing story. But anyways, we might as well get to our favorite part of the show, the predictions. And I can't even remember what we did in our World Tour predictions at the start of the year, but I think we can start with a clean slate. Who's your top 3 for this year? I should have gone first.
Yeah, you probably should. I want to include somebody cool, like a bit of a rogue.
Mathieu van der Poel, double world champion, isn't cool enough for you?
Well, no, somebody less predictable.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to go with 3rd place is going to be Lars Kana. 2nd place will be Pedersen, and Van der Poel will win.
What happens with Wout?
He's 4th.
Oh,
in the Wout van Aert position. This is still Wout van Aert Flanders position is 4th. I was trying to think of a scenario where I can get him in there, but he let me down at E3. I don't want to get burnt again.
Okay, I will bat for the Wout corner. Pedersen in 3rd, Mathieu van der Poel in 2nd because he has the rainbow jersey, and Wout van Aert wins his first Tour of Flanders.
I'd love to see it. It would be.
Laporte, give him your European jersey. That's what we desperately want. But anyways, that's basically it for our preview show here on the channel. Make sure to check out the top 5 as well. That was up yesterday or whenever you're watching this. And of course, as always, check out Patrick's own channel, I'll Do Cycling. There's going to be a preview of Tour of Flanders if you're watching this before Tour of Flanders, and then Tour of Flanders as well. So check that out as well. And if you want to see more of Patrick, the Echelon Cycling Podcast is his primary home. Sorry, I'll Do Cycling. But with that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below who you think is going to win as well before the race. I know a lot of you do the sneak away, but yeah, with that, thank you for watching, and we will see you around.